And O'Reilly brace keeps the pressure on Arsenal, while Eze stars in another North London derby as they stay 5 points clear, even though City have a game in hand. Mac Allister pulls a miracle out the bag for Liverpool to keep our top 5 hopes alive. And we have to speak about the reality of Spurs. They could get relegated. People, it is the Premier League roundup show, game week 27. We got a bit to talk about. Let's get into this.
The main free back up in your screen. Real ones know this the place to be. This is Kopish.
Big up everyone. Hope you're well. My name is Callum, representing Team Kopish. If this is your first time watching or listening to us, please do smash the like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Right, let's get on with the proceedings. And the fixtures over the weekend produced some absolute shockers. I'm going to start with the Villa versus Leeds game, which ended 1-1. And I'll be honest, going into the game, I thought Villa would get the win here. However, Villa are quite depleted with injuries. I know they brought in a couple of players on loan and brought Douglas Luiz back and brought in Tammy Abraham, but it's still not looking right. And look, I still have Villa finishing in the top 5. I also still have Villa winning the Europa League, especially with all the history that Unai Emery has with that competition and just his nous and know-how on how to do that. But surprised at this result. And look, it's not the first time Leeds have gone to a team battling for the top 5 and got points. I mean, we know this, but I do think injuries are catching up with them. When you look at the table, they are getting quite vulnerable. I mean, Liverpool, Man United, and Chelsea, I think, are around 6 points behind Villa now, which was a much larger gap in previous weeks. So, and if Man United actually win their game against Everton, they close that gap as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Villa going forward. I do think they'll stay in the top 5, but the injuries may be catching up with them and they must be careful. Another shock at the weekend for me was Brentford 0, Brighton 2. Look, Brighton have these days where they just become a bogey team for anyone. They have a day where they just turn into a prime team, and they had this against Brentford. Now, I had Brentford winning this game going into the fixtures at the weekend. However, I will say when Brighton are on, they are a very difficult team to deal with. And look, they managed to deal with Brentford pretty handily with a 2-0 win. But what I will say is Brentford deserve the utmost credit. And I don't think Keith Andrews has really been getting the flowers he deserves. Brentford lost their manager, Thomas Frank, who'd been a part of their club for years and years and years. Was a mainstay at the club, almost became the face of the club. Lost Ivan Toney. Lost Mbuemo, lost Wisa, lost Norgard, and they're still performing so well. Look, Igor Thiago been brilliant. Coyote's been really good. They've had some really standout performances. Dare I say it, Sepp Vandenberg, who left Liverpool, he's been doing really well as well. Brentford deserves their flowers. And look, even though this result didn't go their way, I still think you have to look at what they've achieved so far this season, and you've got to tip your hat to Keith Andrews. I still think they have an outside chance of qualifying for maybe the Conference League for next season. But whatever they do, wherever they finish, up until this point right now, there's still a good amount of the season left, they have everything to be proud of so far. And I think they'll pick themselves back up. And I think they'll go again. Another shock of the weekend. Chelsea won, Burnley won. Again, we've been here. Look, I said this in previous weeks. Obviously, as a Liverpool fan, it's not so much I fear that Liverpool can't win games. Also, it's not that I fear Liverpool might not slip up. It's also what the other teams do. And look, Chelsea slipping up was massive for us, especially with us getting a win, which I'll touch on shortly. Chelsea going into this game would have seen this as a bit of a banker. And we saw the same with Burnley. And guess what? We drew them as well. But Chelsea are just doing this again. They're just throwing away results. We saw Cole Palmer miss an easy chance a couple of weeks ago. And now we've seen this Burnley getting a goal in the last few minutes of the game. Chelsea need to get out of this situation. They need to start closing out games. They need to start picking up 3 points, or they're going to be the team that falls out of the top 5. And I'll be honest, I know Liverpool has spent a lot of money in the summer, but Chelsea, since Todd Bowley's come in, has spent stupid amount of money. They need to be in Champions League. They need to be winning trophies. They need to be showing something from the investment that's been happening. And look, I always expect Chelsea to spend money as to go again, regardless of where they finish. But there has to be a tipping point where you go, right, players are going to stop being as interested. The club's going to have to stop the spending as much as they're spending. Something's got to give. But Chelsea, they need top 5. And at the moment, between Liverpool, Chelsea, and dare I say Villa, it looks like neither of these teams really want to stamp their authority on that top 5 race. But we will see what happens in the coming weeks. Probably the most lackluster game of the weekend was West Ham versus Bournemouth. Now, in an isolated result, Bournemouth getting a draw with West Ham is a decent result for both teams. But I do think Bournemouth would have been going into that game with a bit of confidence, but West Ham would have also wanted to try and grab 3 points here and try and take themselves closer to survival in the league. They are still in the relegation zone. However, we'll speak about that. That is getting closer because currently West Ham sit 18th in the league on 25 points. However, Nottingham Forest are on 27 points and Spurs are on 29 points and Leeds on 31. So they're not gone by any stretch of the imagination. Like West Ham have done really well to claw themselves back in, because a few weeks back it looked like they were dead and buried, but they are still resurgent. And look, it could be a massive point by the time the end of the season comes around. So time will tell and see how this one pans out. But West Ham would definitely have liked to have seen 3 points in this one. The big game on Saturday was Manchester City versus Newcastle at the Etihad, and Man City delivered the goods. A very nervy performance. Probably one of the most nervy performances I've seen out of Man City, especially in that second half. Decision making was poor, especially for Mamouche in the first half. He just kept on making the wrong decision, overhitting passes. He just wasn't himself. I think Semenyo was quite lively in the first half, was really quiet in the second half, in my opinion. Haaland, I thought, was immense. For the amount of people that speak about Haaland not having any footballing talent and just being a finisher, I think that game showed it. That the highest praise I can give Haaland for that performance, that was a Drogba-esque performance in the sense of defending at corners, just defending in general, picking up play, linking up play, driving at defenses. And look, again, it's one of those rare games where you can, give praise to the striker, but you also have to give praise to Dan Burn. They both had a fantastic game against each other, in my opinion, and it was a very competitive game. O'Reilly got the opening goal. Lewis Hall equalised with a deflected shot, and then O'Reilly gets the winner from a Haaland deflected cross. Nico O'Reilly is a player that's, in my opinion, has to be on the team sheet for, not necessarily, definitely on the plane for the World Cup, but he's given himself a real chance of starting. Now, that left-back spot, for me, is between him and Hall, and Lewis Hall. Lewis Hall, everyone knows how high I rate him. I'd love him at Liverpool. I think he's a fantastic left back and he's got great years ahead of him. Where he ends up after Newcastle remains to be seen, because I don't know if they hang on to him for that long. But he is brilliant. But O'Reilly's showing it again, but this time he's showing it in midfield. He's just showing the versatility. But again, look, I've been accused of it and not from proof. You know what I mean? I mean, I've said Pep Guardiola is a checkbook manager. Despite him being a fantastic coach, I still think he's a checkbook manager. But when you look at what he's doing with players like O'Reilly, what he's done with Rico Lewis in previous seasons, what he's done with Foden, I know he spends a lot of money, and he did in January getting Semenyo and Guehi in. And by the way, Guehi has been fantastic for Man City since he signed. But you have to give Pep his flowers with how he's bringing through these young players. I mean, we have Slot, and a lot of the complaints from Liverpool fan base is how Trainioni's been treated. Rio and Gamoa, Bobby Clark was just thrown out the door. Kwanzaa was kind of thrown out the door. Like, we don't know what's going on with Jaden Downs and Bajcetic. I know they've had the injuries, but we don't know what's going on with them. Calvin Ramsey's treatment. You look at how Pep is bringing through these young academy prospects and talent, and how he's been integrated into the team, and the fact that O'Reilly can play left back, he can play in centre midfield as well. Nothing short of brilliant. And look, getting this win for Man City was massive, because effectively the league is still in their hands to an extent, because if they win their game in hand, they go 2 points behind Arsenal, and then they have that massive game at the Etihad if things remain the same. So shout out to Man City. I mean, I hate saying it because I want to be in a title race, but they've done it again. They've made another title race, and it remains to be seen whether Arsenal can hold their nerve. Plus, Newcastle really need to figure out what's going on there, because they're not having a good season at all. And I think it's kind of going under the radar. Newcastle are 11th in the league right now. And for what they've done and for the investment they've made over the past few years, they should be higher than that. And they've got a squad and a team better than that as well. So if Newcastle don't get European football, I'm very intrigued to see what happens, because they're in the Champions League now. You have to think the likes of Gordon, Tonali, Bruno, Hall, Livramento, they might start looking elsewhere if they don't get European football. And look, I know they're doing well in the Champions League. They just had a fantastic win over Karabag. But I don't think anyone has them as favourites or one of the favourites to win the competition. I don't think they'll win the competition. I don't think they're strong enough, but they should be strong enough to be competing for these European spots, and they're not there yet. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens if they don't qualify for Europe at the end of the season. But time will tell with Newcastle United. On to the Sunday games. And we'll start at Selhurst Park. Crystal Palace wicking up a 1-0 win over Wolves. Wolves won a penalty in that game, which was saved. And then Crystal Palace went and scored in the second half. Again, just compounds the misery with Wolverhampton Wanderers. A massive win for Crystal Palace, though. They needed that. Not been in good form. They've been losing players over the last couple of years and not really replacing them very well. Glasner's obviously going to be leaving at the end of the season. Crystal Palace need to make sure they're in the Premier League so they can still attract players. It's going to be very interesting to see who they go for as the next manager. It might be smart of them to go for the next up-and-coming manager. I don't think they can go for like a Fabregas or someone of his ilk. But if you can go for that tier below maybe and try and get one of the up-and-coming managers to go to Crystal Palace. But look, much-needed win. I think the writing's on the wall for Wolverhampton Wanderers. Had a good period in the Premier League, but they've just been losing players for seasons now and just not really done well in replacing those players. Plus losing Nuno, I think, was massive for them as well. So unfortunately for Wolves, I think it's all but gone for them, but we'll see what happens in the next few weeks and if they can pick up a few more points to make it a little bit more interesting for the rest of the teams in the league. Let's move on to Liverpool. I've got to speak about my beloved Liverpool. Look, if you watch the live match reaction with me, Matt, and Drift and the player ratings, you'll know that we didn't think the performance was good at all. And the link to that is here. You'll see that as well. But 3 points are massive. And it really closes the gap on Chelsea and Man United and Villa to an extent. So Liverpool, in their last 6 games, we've picked up 3 wins, 2 losses and 1 draw. Again, not fantastic form, but it puts us on 45 points. A little bit of breathing room from Brentford, who are on 40 points. And we're on the same amount of points as Chelsea and Man United, even though Man United will play their game in hand against Everton, which I'm hoping they drop points in. And we are 6 points behind Aston Villa, which means we can claw that back. We still have Villa to play as well. So, look, we put ourselves in a better position. Do I still think we'll definitely do it? No. Do I think we need to improve performances? Yes. Was today a smash and grab? Yes. But you know what? We take it and we move forward. But things have to improve, man. Mac Allister did really well to get the finish, to get the goal, but overall performances were really poor. I thought the left back, Kirkes, and I thought the 2 centre backs were immense. I thought Alisson had a really good game, especially with that early save. But the rest of the players, man, not good. Rio Ngamoa. Give him some more bloody minutes. Give Rio some more minutes. Please. Do not trap this kid. Do not put him in the basement. Give him some minutes. He did more in that cameo than Salah and Gakpo combined in that game. Give him some more minutes. On to, again, another shock of the weekend. Probably the shocking result of Sunday, which is Sunderland 1, Fulham 3. That's 3 losses in a row for Sunderland now, which is quite weird for me to say, considering Sunderland have been so good. We've beaten them, now Fulham away as well. And have they been found out? Maybe that's the question. Do they need to alter how they play at home a little bit? Because Fulham were pretty dominant and were creating chances in this game. Another great result. And it also puts Fulham in a position whereby they could have an outside chance of maybe qualifying for the Conference League. And that's massive for Fulham. If Fulham can get Conference League football, I think that would be really massive for the club. And if they can hold on to the players they have and add to the squad, they'll be one of the favourites to win that if they go into the Conference League. So be very intrigued to see what Fulham do. Fulham are a good club, man. Nothing bad to say about Fulham. Always a difficult opposition for us. Always give us tricky games. Nothing bad to say about Fulham. So, yeah, good luck to them for the rest of the season. And hopefully they can secure that Conference League spot. Obviously, hopefully not at our expense when we play them again. But, yeah, let's see what Fulham do. And we end with the Eze derby. Because in 2 games, Eberici Eze has scored 5 goals against the team that he and many other people thought he might be joining in the summer, and that is Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham Hotspur 1, Arsenal 4. Brace from Eze and a brace from Gyökeres. And look, Gyökeres had a really good game. well taken, both of his goals. He was lively throughout. Eze took his goals really well. Spurs have no wins in their last 6. And this was a massive game for Arsenal. Make no bones about it, guys. Spurs were extremely physical and aggressive in the first half. Arsenal maintained their composure and did what it had to do. Arsenal were very, very good in that game. In a North London derby, when your back's against the wall, the pressure's on because of the few results over the last couple of weeks, the fact that Man City are starting to kick into gear, massive result and massive win for Arsenal. And they did really well. And look, they could have been out of sight by even more goals. So I don't think 4-1 flatters them at all. I think it's a very fair result. Could have been more. Spurs, man, a lot of injuries. That starting lineup, I knew it was trouble as soon as I saw that starting lineup. Jed Spence, left wing back. You're limiting his game. Like, he's a right back or right wing back, and a very good right back or right wing back. Xavi Simons just, again, looked really poor. Kolo Muani put himself about, but had very little to work with. Having Dragusin and Paulinho in your back 3 is a disaster waiting to happen. Like, Spurs are just in a really bad way at the moment. And look, the phrase sometimes that goes around is a team's too big to be relegated. Spurs aren't too big to be relegated. And we can't even say this is an anomaly now. They finished low last season in the Premier League, and they won a European trophy, which kind of marks that over. And because of how Ange played, everyone was like, oh, you know, it's a one-off. Tottenham right now are 4 points above the relegation zone. They're 4 points above the relegation zone. And if you actually look at their fixtures, they have Fulham away, which for me is a tough game. Palace at home, which I think is winnable for them. But then they've got Liverpool away as well. Tottenham are in trouble. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to get relegated, because I don't think they will. But to say they're not in a relegation battle would be very negligent. They are right now. They really are in a relegation battle right now. Nottingham Forest on 27 points in 17th. And a West Ham on 25 points in 18th. And I'll be honest with you, Tottenham need to get their act together. Need to get their act together fast. I don't know what's going on there. They've obviously got a new manager in at the moment. Their decision-making against Arsenal was horrific, playing out in situations where they should have just cleared it and then reset. It was just poor. It looked like men against boys with the Arsenal-Spurs game. But look, Arsenal won't care. They just care about the 3 points. They're trying to secure their first title in over 20 years. And this title race looks like it's going down to the wire. This top 5 race looks like it's going down to the wire. And the relegation battle looks to be hotting up with Tottenham in the mix now as well. People, I'm going to wrap up there. Please do smash that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Also, let me know your comments and your thoughts in the comment section. And yes, people, that's been game week 7. The Premier League Roundup Show. My name's Callum, representing Team Kopish. Thank you all for watching and listening. Until we see you again, stay safe, stay blessed. Take care, everyone.